Senator Dudful on debate. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Colleagues, I really didn't intend to speak, and Senator Banmar is our expert on rules. She has commented and will comment again, perhaps tomorrow and Thursday. She will be able to comment on the technical content of the bill, but I cannot remain silent following comments that I've heard today, following an exchange between the Conservative groups who, during the pause, discussed these important issues. And I'd like to thank them for having shared some of it. Now, I'd like to bring in certain nuances, certain distinctions that perhaps we haven't discussed yet.
Once adopted.
Is Senator Delphond asking a question? Or
He's on debate.
Oh, okay.
I'm on debate.
Sorry.
In French. Change channel. So, colleagues, these motions, once adopted, will give all parliamentary groups and parties in the Senate more equitable procedural powers, albeit with some remaining discrepancies, such as ex officio voting rights at committee. As such, this motion is a positive step to allow all groups to participate in the organizations of the Senate proceedings, such as the ability to defer votes and also to have committees hearings outside of ordinary times without two senators holding a veto. This motion is firmly grounded in the Westminster tradition of recognizing parliamentarians' freedoms to associate in groups and to play their part in the legislative process and hold any government of the day to account. These motions enhance senators' ability to perform our constitutional function without the need to be part of a government caucus or of an opposition caucus. Senator Plett has presented these rule change motion as an unprecedented government motion drafted by an outgoing Prime Minister office, trying to ambush an upcoming strong majority of a Conservative party. For those who see conspiracies all around at the United Nations, at the World Health Organization, at Davos, and other places, this narrative may be appealing. But the facts are what we should be looking at. And for those that are interested by facts, they should consider that these proposals, these changes, are along lines of previous discussions over many years since I joined the Senate 6 years ago, such as at the Modernization Committee and at the Rule Committee. Indeed, these changes will bring our rules in line with the changes to the Parliament of Canada Act that we finally adopted in 2022 after attempts in starting in 2020. Took a long time to get there. It has to be part of a budget as one omnibus bill, which I don't like so much, but that part of that omnibus bill I did like. Furthermore, this motion is not a first in Canadian history. Allow me to quote two passages from our Senate Procedures in Practice. First, I'll refer to page III on the topic of rules, and I quote, "Several minor modifications were made in subsequent years, but those that occurred in 1991 were the most far-reaching. They were put in place following an unprecedented level of partisan rancor arising from the debate over the introduction of Goods and Services Tax, the GST. Among the changes incorporated into the rules were time limits for specific proceedings, including senators' statements, routine proceedings, and question period. Time limits were also established for most speeches and for the bells for standing votes. An ordinary time of adjournment, midnight most days, and at 4 o'clock on Friday, was also fixed. Oh, wait. In addition, priority was given to government business, which will be called in the order determined by the government leader or deputy leader. Provisions were also added to allow the government to impose time allocation for its business, and new procedures for dealing with questions of privilege were established. End of first quote. A second interesting quote is found at page 73 of the same Senate Procedures in Practice. I quote again. The orders of the day are divided in two main categories, government business and other business. This distinction has been in place since 1991, when changes to the rule of the Senate gave priority to the consideration of items sponsored by the government.
1991?
Yes.
Ooh.
Prior to this change, there was no such division. End of quote. Colleagues, from these passages, I note two important points. First, there was no distinctions between government business and other business prior to 1991. Second, there was no time allocation rule prior to 1991. In inquiring how these changes came about, as a matter of procedure, I found that these major rule changes were part of a massive package of rule changes adopted on June 18, 1991, at the initiative of the Conservative government of the then Prime Minister, the Right Honourable Brian Mulroney.
Ooh.
They were adopted on a standing vote of 40 to 30. I repeat, a standing vote of 40 to 30.
Well done.
Far from a consensus. Furthermore, these changes followed the Prime Minister Mulroney's appointment of an extra 8 senators to the Senate in 1990 under a section of the Constitution that has never otherwise been used in Canadian history. So, we're not making big history tonight, but it was made in 1991. We can hardly speak of rule changes based on consensus. As a matter of fact, Section 36 of the Constitution Act, 1867, requires that the Senate makes decisions by majority. The Constitution does not permit us to make rules that will require a supermajority, like in the US Senate, because it will be against the Constitution, or by implication, for example, giving a veto to a group of 13 senators. Furthermore, as Senator Sinclair said in 2020, in discussing potential rule changes proposed by him and me, as you may remember, it was a thick package, and I quote, "Consensus should not be a precondition to doing the right thing." End of quote. I believe in that. In short, Senators, the opposition's case against these motions rests on propositions that are inaccurate, and especially, furthermore, on a vision of our chamber that no longer exists. The reality is that we have now 4 groups in the Senate and none having a majority. Hopefully, this will last. In doing so, we should not be ashamed of what we're doing. In fact, we are simply following the evolutions of the Westminster model. As you know, for those that don't know, you will know. As you know, we were modeled on the House of Lords, the upper chamber of the Westminster Parliament. For many decades now, the House of Lords is made of various groups, the 4 largest being the Conservative, 277 peers, the Labour peers, 172, the Liberal Democrats peers, 80, and the crossbenchers, 181 peers. As you can see, none has a majority of seats, and despite the very unpopular Conservative government, which is running England now, its bills make it through the Lords. The rules proposed by the motions before us will ensure that these 4 groups we have here enjoy equivalent status in many aspects. Ultimately, these new rules will reflect the equality between groups that we're trying to achieve, a principle of equality which is important for all of us as individuals and as members of groups. And beyond that, it will guarantee the existence of 4 groups in this place, which comes with the freedom of each of us to affiliate with one of these groups and to change affiliations as time goes, and makes us more independent and not dependent of making a move such as crossing the floor when you disagree with your group. Speaking of the Westminster model, I think we should go further than what we're going now. We should follow what they've done already. For example, we could elect our Speaker. They took away this from the power of the Crown. Now the Speaker is elected by secret ballot in the House of Lords. And, Madam Speaker, that's no criticism of you. I'm sure you will win the votes. But the issue is that that's the model that the House of Lords is going. This is what the Westminster model is evolving towards. Moreover, the chairs of the committees are selected by the whole House. A committee of chairs chairs all the meetings of the committees. And these are the standing lords that have been selected by the whole chamber, not by 2 or 3 members of a committee, to be the chair of that committee.
You know that.
Colleagues, I conclude on a note. Some people are concerned about the fact that I might not, at the end of the day, if these rules are adopted, have unlimited time when I'll do the next speech. I understand the theory. In practice, I never use unlimited time. I don't even use my 45 minutes today, and I normally don't use it, because I believe that if your message is clear, it can be put towards your colleagues in 15 minutes, maybe 30 minutes, maybe 45 minutes. But if you need more than that, it's because your message is defective at more than one places. Exactly. Thank you very much, colleagues, for your attention.